Guilherme Medeiros, a 62-year-old real estate tycoon, stood in the doorway of his mansion's kitchen, his voice cold and commanding. Helena, empty your pockets. Now, Helena Ferreira, a 35-year-old black woman who had worked as his housekeeper for 8 months, paused while drying her hands. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his with an unsettling calm. No fear, no guilt, just a quiet confidence that threw Guilherme off balance. Is there a problem, Senor Guilherme? She asked, her tone professional yet laced with something sharper, something he couldn't quite place. My wife's diamond bracelet is missing, he said, arms crossed, letting the accusation hang in the air. It's worth over 15,000. You were the only one in her room today. Guilherme had built his empire on the belief that people like Helena were predictable, easily intimidated. Over the years, he dismissed countless black employees with similar accusations, always confident they'd leave quietly, too scared to fight back. But Helena didn't flinch. She folded the dish towel with deliberate care, her movements steady. So, you assumed it was me, she said, her voice cool. Interesting. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Guilherme snapped, his tone shifting to the patronizing one he used in boardrooms. I know you've got a daughter to support. Times are tough. Maybe you just got confused about what's yours. Helena's response was a smile, not the nervous one he expected, but a knowing one, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Senor Guilherme, she said, pulling her phone from her pocket with deliberate slowness. Before we check my pockets, how about we call the police? I'm sure they'd love to investigate a 15,000 theft. Guilherme froze. This wasn't the script he'd envisioned. A guilty employee should be begging for mercy, not suggesting police involvement with the confidence of a seasoned lawyer. For 8 months, Helena had watched him closely. She noted his dismissive sneers at the black deliverman, his casual disdain for the gardeners, his phone calls about lazy people who only want handouts. She'd heard his theories about certain people being naturally inclined to crime. Now, his own words were about to unravel him. No need for that, he said, trying to regain control. Just cooperate, and we can, I insist. Helena cut in, her voice firm. Her phone buzzed with a message, and her smile widened. Right on time, she murmured, typing a quick reply. Looks like I'll have company sooner than expected. Confused, Guilherme watched as Helena emptied her pockets. House keys, a pack of gum, a crumpled tissue. No bracelet. Satisfied? She asked, hands open. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Once, twice, then again, each chime more urgent than the last. I'm sorry, Senor Guilherme, Helena said, walking toward the door with a confidence that left him reeling, but I think our conversation is just getting started. As she opened the door, voices filled the hall, some in Portuguese, others in Spanish. Guilherme's mind raced. Who were these people, and why did Helena have the authority to let them in? Senor Guilherme, she called from the entryway, her voice now carrying an unmistakable authority. Please join us in the living room. We have a lot to discuss. For the first time in decades, Guilherme felt the ground shift beneath him. He followed her, dread pooling in his stomach, and entered the living room to find 3 black women seated on his Italian leather sofa and a man in a sharp suit arranging papers on the coffee table. What the hell is going on? Guilherme demanded. Who are these people? Helena's voice was steady, almost ceremonial. Allow me to introduce Dona Sofia, who worked for you for 2 years. Dona Beatriz, who lasted 6 months, and Dona Claudia, who cleaned this house for 4 years before you accused her of stealing a ring, later found in your wife's car. Guillermi's face paled. He vaguely recognized them. Former employees he'd fired for theft, their reputations ruined, their protests ignored. And this, Helena continued, gesturing to the man, is Dr. Marcelo Ribeiro, a lawyer specializing in labor rights and racial discrimination. Dr. Marcelo Soto, offering a um choque, Guilherme ignored. For 8 months, he said, my client, Helena Ferreira, has documented a pattern of racial discrimination and false accusations against black employees in this household. That's absurd, Guilherme shouted, his face reddening. I have every right to protect my property. If things go missing and these people are the only ones around, it's obvious that black women are thieves. Helena interjected, her voice like a blade, that we don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, that our families, our struggles, our integrity are automatically suspect. Dona Sofia, in her 60s, spoke up. You accused me of stealing 500 from your office, said I was typical of my people, that I should know my place. I lost my job, my references, nearly my home. A week later, you found the money in your coat pocket. You never called, never apologized. Guilherme muttered, avoiding her gaze. It was a mistake. Helena stepped to the window, looking out at the manicure garden. For 8 months, she'd been more than a housekeeper. She'd been an investigator. A trained journalist with a degree in investigative reporting, she'd lost her job at a local paper after probing elite corruption. Desperate, she'd taken this job to survive, only to discover Guilherme was the perfect subject for the kind of expose she'd built her career on. The first thing that struck me, Helena said, turning to face him, was overhearing you laugh with your lawyer about how easy it is to get rid of colored labor when you need a scapegoat. Or maybe it was when you told your accountant that mysterious losses were a great excuse to fire people and keep those types away from decent families. Dr. Marcelo spread documents across the table. Helena has recorded conversations, photographed evidence, and collected testimonies from 12 black women fired for baseless theft accusations over the past 5 years. You can't prove anything, Guilherme said, his voice faltering. Oh, we can, Helena replied, holding up her phone. She played a recording, his voice unmistakable. This Helena seems perfect. Looks like the type who'd steal if given the chance. She'll be a great scapegoat when we need one. The room fell silent. Guilherme's eyes darted to the women, their faces a mix of resolve and quiet triumph. The bracelet, he stammered, clinging to his last offense. It's still missing. Helena walked to the fireplace and retrieved something from behind a framed photo. The diamond bracelet gleamed in the light. Right where your wife left it, she said. She took it off before her shower last night and forgot it. I found it this morning, but decided to see how far your prejudice would take you. Guilherme's legs buckled. For 8 months, he'd underestimated the woman he'd treated as invisible, never suspecting she was building a case against him. Helena held up her phone again, revealing a live Instagram feed with 15,000 viewers, climbing rapidly. Every word you've said, she said, is being broadcast to journalists, activists, and people who follow my work. They know a good story when they see one. Guilherme lunged for the phone, but Dr. Marcelo stepped in. Any interference will be considered witness intimidation, he said calmly as the viewer count hit 30,000. You don't know who you're dealing with, Guillermo roared, dialing his lawyer. I have connections, police, judges. But his calls went nowhere. His trusted attorneys cited conflicts of interest, sudden scheduling issues, or simply didn't answer. In 15 minutes, the man who could once open any door with a phone call was utterly alone. How? He whispered, his voice breaking. Helena walked to his bookshelf, pulling out tiny recording devices hidden among his status symbol books. You always made your shadiest calls in the library on Thursday mornings while I was vacuuming nearby. 8 months of you bragging about bribing officials, rigging contracts, and using insider information for your real estate deals. Donna Claudia spoke up. Helena found me 6 months ago. She knew I was innocent and had a plan to prove it. I thought she was crazy, a maid taking down a millionaire. But she's no maid. Dr. Marcello opened another file. Helena is an investigative journalist, fired for exposing corruption like yours. This job was her way in to your life, your habits, your secrets. You gave her everything because you never saw past her skin or her uniform. Helena's phone buzzed with calls from major news outlets, CNN Brazil, Folha de Sao Paulo, Globo News. She answered one on speaker. Helena, it's Rebecca from Jornal da Cidade. We're running a cover story on elite discrimination. Can we schedule an interview? Of course, Helena said. I have plenty to share. As Guillermo's phone flooded with panicked messages, business partners pulling out, reporters circling, his stock plummeting, Helena held up a folder. Photos of you bribing city officials, forged safety documents, fraudulent public contracts, all collected while I was cleaning your house. You pretended to be a maid to destroy me, Guillermo whispered. Not to destroy you, Helena corrected. To expose you. The difference matters. The doorbell rang again. 2 police investigators entered with a search warrant for municipal contract irregularities. Guillermo's empire, built on decades of prejudice and manipulation, was crumbling in real time, broadcast to 50,000 viewers and counting. How did you do this? He asked, voice hollow. Helena adjusted her blouse, her dignity unshaken despite months of humiliation. Simple. You underestimated me because you couldn't see beyond my race or my uniform. To you, I was just another invisible black woman. But I was the last person you should have crossed. As the investigators searched the house and the live feed documented his downfall, Guillermo realized the truth. His arrogance had been his undoing. Helena hadn't just outsmarted him. She'd turned his own prejudice into the weapon that destroyed him. 6 months later, Helena Ferreira sat in her new office at Jornal da Cidade, now the director of investigative journalism. Her expose on Guillermo had sparked a national conversation about racial discrimination and elite corruption. Universities offered her teaching positions, and her book, Invisible by Choice, How the Elite Perpetuate Racism, topped bestseller lists for months. She just won a Pulitzer for her work. Across town, Guillermo Medeiros shuffled through the empty halls of what remained of his real estate empire. Only a handful of his 87 properties were still his. Facing fraud, bribery, and discrimination charges, his name was toxic. Dona Sofia had used her settlement to start a cleaning business, hiring women who'd faced similar injustices. Dona Beatriz was finishing nursing school. Dr. Marcello's firm had grown, now specializing in racial discrimination cases. Helena passed the shuttered Medeiros Realty office, a for lease sign hanging crookedly on the door. The irony wasn't lost on her. Guillermo's attempts to render black women invisible had given her the perfect vantage point to dismantle his world. Her revenge wasn't in his ruin. It was in building a legacy of justice that would outlast him. Escaliermi watched a news segment about Helena's latest award. He wondered how he'd been so blind. The answer was simple. His prejudice had made him vulnerable to the very people he dismissed. And in that blind spot, Helena had found her power.